Antunes, Far Beyond Grammar, Towards Language Teaching Without Obstacles. São Paulo, Parabola, 2007. Chapter: A Grammar Analysis Far Short of the Text. In the chapter where we focused on the mistake involving the confusion between grammar rules and nomenclature, we highlighted the great error in thinking that delving into nomenclature is studying grammar, that grammar which grants competence to those who need to speak, read, and write successfully. It is evident that concentrating grammar teaching on topics of its nomenclature cannot be seen as the sole factor responsible for problems in language teaching. But it is also evident that this approach has had a very significant weight, as it has fostered a superficial view of language teaching, besides having removed the opportunity for other issues, such as those concerning lexical expansion and the composition of cohesive, relevant, and coherent texts, to be duly explored. The time invested in analyses for recognizing units, indicating their names and the subdivisions into which they fit, could well be filled with activities of analysis, reflection, production, and revision of the most diverse text genres. How have people not yet realized how sterile it is to restrict oneself to exercises of naming things in language? To dispel the impression that the primacy of recognizing units and their classes is a fact of a distant past, let's look at an activity recently proposed in an elementary school. The activity was based on the following stanza from the well-known composition Communion by Milton Nascimento in partnership with Fernando Brandt, Anima, Adiola, 1982. I want peace, I don't want war. I want abundance, I don't want hunger. I want justice, I don't want hatred. I want a house of good brick. I want a street of good people. I want rain on my farm. I want sun on my head. I want life, I don't want death, no. And then came the challenges for the students. How many verses and stanzas does this poem have? Write the abstract nouns from the third and last verse. Highlight all existing nouns in the text and write them next to each verse. Remember that a noun is a word that gives names to beings, actions, feelings, qualities, and sensations. Mark X on the correct alternative. The word roça, farm or rural area, is common noun, compound noun, primitive noun, or derived noun. Answer: A. What compound noun can we form with the noun chuva, rain? B. Present a derived noun for the word chuva. Produce two sentences that contain collective nouns. Underline the collectives used. Based on what we discussed in class about the war fought between the United States and Iraq and the text of this assessment, develop a prose text with the title below. Write freely. No to war. Let us analyze, albeit briefly, the proposal. Where is the text analysis? Where is the understanding of the poem? Where did it go? Did the questions asked contribute to a better understanding of the poem? Does the poem become clearer after the student knows how many verses there are? After they recognize the abstract nouns that appear in each verse and write them down? What relation does the activity of forming sentences using collective nouns have with the meanings expressed in the poem? What is the purpose of knowing if the name roça is common, compound, could it be, by chance, primitive, or derived noun? No chance. How does this contribute to a better grasp of the poem's meaning? And where was the exploration of the elements that make this text a poetic text? No competent reader reads poems looking for nouns or the like. The competent reader reads looking for meanings, emotions, intentions, sayings, presuppositions. In fact, the text was fragmented, torn apart, reduced to a set of words that could be analyzed in themselves, that is, decontextualized, as if they were not part of the text. At no time was the poem seen as a unit, a thematically oriented whole, and the words as significant parts of that whole. At no time was allusion made to the genre or the communicative function in which the text materializes. In fact, there was no analysis of the text. It is not enough for the questioned words to be taken from a text to have a text analysis. If the words in question had been collected randomly, the result of the analysis would be the same, as it was not necessary to go to the poem to decide on the nature of one word or another. What does it really mean to teach grammar based on texts, or from texts? To remove words or expressions to indicate the class to which they belong? To take words out of the sequence in which they were in the text? To grant them total autonomy, as if they had an entirely independent life? Or to indicate the syntactic function they perform in the sentence? Is the text merely the ground where one goes to fetch stones that will be analyzed in isolation? But in the ground, the stones were not isolated.